At 12 o'clock with the Jaguars traveling to Indianapolis. Colts favored by 10 points on CBS. Jaguars are kind of one of those weird teams that have not had that many injuries, right? Obviously, you have the wide receiver injury to DJ Chark. That kind of sucks at the beginning of the year. And then you also have the injury to James O'Shaughnessy. But defensively, really no significant injuries. Knock on wood. They've cut Josh Lambo. So it's not like Josh Lambo's hurt anymore. It's they just decided to go with Michael Wright. So, I mean, here are your injuries on offense. Legitimately, you only have 3 injuries, really. 4 injuries, technically. Okay, so you've had 2 injuries at the running back position, right? James Robinson has heel injury, limited practice, questionable for this week. So you might not have him for this week. And then, obviously, at the beginning of the year, you lost Travis Etienne, foot injury, IR. Now, again, yeah, I should not have listed him because it's not like a recent injury, but I feel like it's worth mentioning. Carlos Hyde was a player that I thought like it's going to be the best trio in the NFL, and really James Robinson, Travis Etienne, and Carlos Hyde was going to be phenomenal. Carlos Hyde is now starting if James Robinson can't go, which I'm fine with. Honestly, I love what Carlos Hyde brings to the table. 2014 second-round pick out of Ohio State. Obviously, his best year was the 1 year he was with the Houston Texans. Texans didn't want to pay him. That turned out to be a huge mistake. But Carlos Hyde has since bounced around. I believe he was with the San Francisco. He was with the Seattle Seahawks last year as a backup running back for them. Now he's in Jacksonville. He's gonna maybe the starter today, so it's gonna be interesting. He's a really good player. But after that, Dare Ogunbowale, 4th-year player out of Wisconsin. Divine Ozigbo, 4th-year player out of Nebraska. These are guys that are on most people's practice squad, and you're going to be playing them significant amounts, which is not ideal, obviously, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. But again, if really you only have one position kind of hurt, that's amazing. Like, yeah, let's just compare this. This is what I have for the Falcons and Cowboys injuries. This is the Jacksonville Jaguars injuries right here. That is phenomenal. That's a great place to be if you were the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? The only other injuries you really have is center Brandon Linder had an MCL injury. He's possible to come back this week, but if not, Tyler Shatley, 9th-year player at Clemson, has not been doing a horrible job. And then A.J. Cann has a knee injury. He's out for the year with an IR. Ben Barch, though, the 2020 4th-round pick out of St. John's, Minnesota, also has been doing a decent job of keeping Trevor Lawrence safe. The Colts have had some not so insignificant injuries. Paris Campbell that went down with a foot injury on IR at least in week 15. I don't know where Paris Campbell exactly was on the depth chart, but I know for a fact Michael Pittman Jr. and T.Y. Hilton were both ahead of them. So I kind of listened to Zach Pascal, number 3 receiver, 5th-year player out of Old Dominion. I feel like him and Paris Campbell kind of split snaps. But definitely Ashton Doolin is going to step into a brand new role for him as the number 4 receiver, 4th-year player out of Malone. Desmond Patman, 2020 6th-round pick out of Washington State, is also in Mike Strahan. I don't know how to pronounce his name. 2021 7th-round pick out of Charleston, West Virginia. I think this is going to be an interesting receiving core because outside of Michael Pittman Jr., there is no dominant player. Definitely getting T.Y. Hilton back is a huge asset, and then Zach Pascal has been a player that stepped up for them recently, but let's be honest, Ashton Doolin, Desmond Patman, and Mike Strahan are not players that see the field a lot. So we'll be interested to see how they step up in this game. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, has a back injury, limited practice, questionable for this game. That's not great, guys, if you're the Colts fan. Obviously, one of your better players on defense, arguably your best player on defense, you don't want him to obviously be hurt, and you're in a bad situation if he cannot go. Grover Stewart has been a good player. Let's be honest here, Grover Stewart has been probably the most underrated part of this Colts defense. 2017, some 4th-round pick out of Albany State. Phenomenal player. He's been really playing well. But outside of him, you got Antoine Woods, 4th-year player out of USC, and Taylor Stallworth, 4th-year player out of South Carolina. Not obviously ideal depth. I mean, they might be fine depth players, but you really want DeForest Buckner to be that dominant player. And if you don't have DeForest Buckner on the field, you can kind of shift your protections to make sure that the defensive ends don't get as much pass rush either. Safeties, Curry Willis has a calf injury on IR at least until week 12, and Julie Blackman's out the year with Achilles injury, which means George Odom has had to step up as a starting strong safety, 5th-year player to Central Arkansas, and Anderson Dejo, obviously 12th-year player at Rice, starting free safety. And then backup ones are Jaleel Ade, 10th-year player out of Central Michigan, and if you know that name if you've been watching my Conference Champion Series, Jaleel Day, one of the starters for that MAC team, and Josh Jones, 2017 second-round pick out of NC State. So obviously you can't get Kari Willis back yet. You're going to rely a lot on Anderson Dejo, easily the most experienced player on this team. Jaleel Day, obviously a veteran addition. He's not the most talented player, but he'll get the job done. He's a very solid player. He's a smart player. That's what you get from being such... He's an old guy. So Xavier Rhodes, calf injuries after the game, which it's not great. The corner position, but you already have TJ Carey. TJ Carey has started before 2017. 2014 7th-round pick out of Ohio, but he started before in the NFL. He could step into that role quite nicely. Isaiah Rodgers, 2020 6th-round pick out of UMass, and then you have Anthony Chesley, second-year player at Coastal Carolina. So it'll be interesting to say at the very least. Now, obviously, I think the Colts are going to win this one. I just, right off the bat. I'm sorry, Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a huge win. Obviously, very impressed with that they beat Buffalo last week. It's still the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Trevor Lawrence has yet to really get going. He has seen some flashes of greatness, but again, we haven't seen really the flip switch like we saw in Justin Fields last week. We've seen some flashes. We saw it against the Bengals. I thought that was the flip that switched, but that was a couple weeks ago. He still has not been dominant since then. So we'll see what the Jaguars are able to do here, but I still think this is the Colts game to win, and this is a Colts chance to get back to 500, right? 5-5. And this is a huge chance for the Colts to get to that 5-5 and then be in a perfect position to go on a run and make it to the playoffs. Like, this is a Colts team that a lot of people feel are better than their record indicates. I feel they're better than their record indicates, and I feel like they still have a legitimate shot at pushing for a playoff push. We'll see what happens here today, but I like the Colts here down the stretch, and I like the Colts to win and cover here.